Hi, I'm Dr. Jen.
Hello, I'm Dr. Yvonne.
And today, Dr. Ivonne, we're going to talk about this concept of showing up, right? And it sounds so simple, right? Like you just show up. But gosh, showing up can be the hardest thing to do, right? What do you think about that? I mean, you've worked with countless clients over the years. Like, you know what this is like from a personal perspective, but like, why do you think this topic is so important about just showing up? Like, show up.
There's so much to say about showing up, and I think just to touch on what you were saying about how difficult it is that many times what we're asking people to show up to are things that they're afraid of. And so our natural instinct when we're afraid of something is to back away, right? So if I'm afraid of something, if it's a snake in the room, I'm gonna try to run in the other direction. The thing is that sometimes we put these fears on things that are necessary that we engage with, like food. And so then the development of the skill of showing up becomes a really important part in normalizing your relationship with food.
Yeah, because look, like when we're fearful of something, the automatic thing our brain does is it just wants to step away from the thing that makes us afraid, right? As a way to protect ourselves. And then what happens is we start to avoid it, right? I sometimes share with clients, this is coming to mind, but like this idea of fear of flying, right? And I have a dear friend who I do a lot of traveling with now all over the world, but for a long period of time, she was so afraid of flying. And she would just want to avoid it. But at the same time, like she's like, hey, I really want to go to that psychological conference in Spain. So like I have to figure out a way to keep facing this thing that like my natural inclination is to avoid it. And so if you're struggling with food and body issues, for some people that's called an eating disorder, it's like it's so easy to want to avoid showing up for your plate, right? So Dr. Vaughn, what are some of the things you think that help people to begin to face those fears and to begin showing up? Because you're so good at, like, what I always say to people, what I love about the work you do is you meet somebody in their fear and you somehow hold their hands to go, okay, we're taking like a step towards that fearful thing. We're taking a step together.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up something like very important, which I think that there's motivation and it comes in spurts, right? So someone really wants to work through their issues, and so they'll make grandiose plans. And so all of a sudden everything's changing and they put all these expectations on themselves, but that just creates more anxiety. So then the showing up becomes even bigger. It just becomes very, very difficult. So that's where it's helpful to be able to talk through it with someone like me, like you, where we can help a person to see perspective of like the value of that small little step, and that those steps build upon each other, and before you know it you look back and you see how far you came.
Mm,
So that's, I feel like that's one that we get this motivation in spurts. And the other thing is the value. I mean, there's actual research on motivation that tells us that the only way that people actually have motivation to change something, like make a behavior change or just change things in general, is by showing up when they don't want to.
mm,
So I want you, because I know you talk a lot about this, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about how you talk to people about doing things afraid and
mm.
how to show up when you don't want to.
I think that's the definition of courage, right? Courage really is not that like, hey, we're so courageous. Like courage is you're feeling all of that fear, right? And you're still taking those, I would say, the brave steps, those brave actions. So, what happens, I call it sometimes the Bambi legs. Like we're feeling really shaky about whatever it is. Maybe it's showing up for you're starting to practice snacks and that feels really scary, or you're starting to I'm thinking about a client we've been working with who's now like, okay, I'm adding in carbs as a regular part of my balanced meal, and that can feel really scary. So, I think there's some different things that can help. Like one thing I say to people is like, what about if you didn't have to do it alone? Right? Like, hey, like maybe if you're afraid about this, particular meal or something you're facing, is there even somebody you might be able to eat with? And so it's like you're not having to face this scary thing. Like, I know for myself, if I'm if I'm scared about something, I really want to have people in my corner who are like doing it ideally with me, or even if they can't do it with me, I'm communicating with them the thing I'm afraid about. Sometimes just saying it out loud to somebody, somebody who really like I trust and is going to encourage me, and I feel like I'm not walking alone. Gosh, that can make the biggest difference for people, like not feeling like you're alone, because I do think so much of this eating disorder is like you're kind of alone with this thing that you've been kind of keeping secret, and it ends up having a lot of power. So sometimes when we shine that light on, the thing that we've been holding as a secret, and we're not sitting alone with that secret, that's how we sort of slowly start dismantling things. So that was a long answer, but that's what
No, and
that's
I
what came to
agree. I
mind.
mean, we call it tiki tiki in the brain. Like the brain is always like we're always thinking. Like you were speaking of a
Ah,
thinking. You're always thinking at all times. And but the difference between, let's say, us having this conversation here and the amount of thinking I might have about something, whether I'm sitting by myself and trying to do something I'm afraid of, like I'd have a lot more tiki tiki in my brain because at least I'd have you to bounce it off. I'd be able to talk to you about it. And so I think that's important. It's kind of hard sometimes to choose people that can truly support us because sometimes they're not thinking the same way that we are, and that makes it really hard for us to kind of show up for ourselves when other people don't show up that way for themselves, especially when they're really close to us or like they're our parent or something like that. I mean, what do you have to say about that?
that's I'm thinking about that personally. Like, how do I know who are the people that I go to for what in some way? And I think that's also where sometimes the therapy comes into play, where we can start bringing in your loved ones. I was talking to a young woman today, and she really wants to educate her parents so they understand what it is she's actually dealing with, right? Like, they're kind of keep thinking that, oh, this is about like changing a number on a scale or something. And it's like, as we know, it's so much deeper and broader and more expansive than that. So, like, I think that can be an important part of the work, is like starting to provide education, not just from me or from you, yes, but then from the actual loved one going through that. I think the other thing that I sometimes will do is like you try something with somebody, right? Like you try to give them guidance about the best way that you want support, right? Like I'm thinking about a friend who, great human being, and I know cares so much about me. And sometimes like his reaction is he just goes into problem solving, right? And I'm like, I just want you to listen. I don't need the problem solving right now. So it's like, I think we also get to teach those people. And sometimes that's hard when in the beginning we don't know what we need.
Right. Yeah, but it does become so important when, and that's really good things for us to talk with people in sessions, right? Like we talk to them about like what is it that you before we actually meet with a parent or something. It's like what is it that you really want from them? Have that clarity. So then when you go into that conversation, at least I in session, I know you do as well. We have that client actually tell the parent, tell the husband, tell the person, this is what I'm needing from you. So it's not sounding from us because it isn't from us. We've helped them to kind of get to a place of clarity of what they need. And it's important to be able to talk it through with someone. I have
Mhm.
one final thought because it's sometimes
Sure.
hard for me to say this, but I
Yeah.
believe that when it comes to, let's say, showing up to a meal, feelings don't matter. And I know that sounds a little harsh, so I want you to kind of soften this up for me because
Okay.
it's like, think about it like anything else in life, whether let's say someone has homework to do, or there's going to work every single day. If our feelings matter, we're gonna go sometimes and we're not gonna go sometimes because our feelings are never gonna be 100% aligned on doing a task or doing a change or a behavior or doing something, especially something that's hard. And that tiki tiki we're talking in your brain will tell you like, don't do it for all these other reasons. So at the end of the day, the end feeling is, I just don't feel like it. So I try to say this, and I always say feelings are very important. This Dr. Jen will tell you that, and that's she's going to talk to you about all your feelings, and I will too if you need that.
Yeah.
However, I'm here to tell you that when it comes to showing up for breakfast, if you're listening to the feelings of I want to or I don't want to, it's not going to happen on a regular, and you're not going to get the consistency that you're wanting.
Yeah, wow, that's a really good point. I think so many things come to mind for that, and I get the point you're making, right? It's like if the person is leaning into their fear or the I don't want it, or sometimes I call it the F it's, right?
Yeah.
Like, how important is breakfast? F it. Like, right? That's sort of what you're saying. If you align with all of that part of your feelings, versus align with maybe it's like aligning with your values, right? Like, what am I actually committed to? I'm committed to, let's just say, getting better. Like, I want to move forward because I know this eating struggle is not serving me. And Dr. Yvonne says, eat my damn breakfast every morning, no matter if I want to or not. I'm going to align with that. And it's funny when you brought this up, I had a moment where today I I was starting to feel really hungry. And I had a meeting that was coming up in like a short period of time. And I was like kind of upset because I was like, damn, I didn't leave enough time to really like, sit outside and be under my cabana and like look at, like a whole thing that I like to do when I eat my meals. And I'm like, damn, like I have to get to the meeting and I'm really hungry and I'm going to listen to my body. So that might be an example of kind of like, am I listening to my physical hunger or am I listening to the, oh, damn, like, oh, I'll put it
Not the
off.
perfect situation. It's not,
Yeah.
yeah. And
And
then eventually what you said was eat your damn food.
eat my damn food.
That's what
And
you said.
and here's the thing. It was more rushed. It was still delicious. I had like these yummy leftovers that I made from they were from last night. And it was a little quicker. And that's just how it went today. And tonight I have more time to be luxurious with my yummy meal that I'm going out for food. So it's like, sometimes it's not going to be the perfect thing, but like what's more important is like my commitment was take care of myself because I will say one other thing that can be really helpful is think the behavior all the way through, right? Like, let's use your example. You miss breakfast. If you think that all the way through, like by the time you get to your job or your class, or like if I went into that meeting being hangry, like how well am I showing up for the person that's in that meeting? So that was another thing. I was like, okay, I could eat after, but how am I really going to feel? No, I'm not going to feel good. Eat my damn food right now.
So what you're saying is make the decision now that your future self will be happy with.
Hmm. Beautifully said. I think that's a great note for us to end on.
I love it.